Speaking
Hello, everyone,
moistly. Keep
and
2 meters apart. Speaking
speaking moistly. Hello,
moistly.
everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, is Greg. How you doing, sir?
I don't even know
Sour,
anymore. I don't know
sour.
anymore. Mark.
We were talking in the green room just before we started, and it was a good conversation. It was a long, it was a robust conversation. It was nice. It's always nice to catch up, and we were talking about what are we going to talk about on the show, and we're going to talk about the travel ban. And he said it's all about Mr. Polyev, right? He didn't even vote. I said, oh no, he did vote. And Greg was like, what? And I said 9 o'clock, 9:40. I think it was 9:40. The tweet went out, or the Facebook update went out, and he said, yeah, I voted, but didn't get registered. I'll let the Speaker of the House know. Essentially, right? Like there was a technical glitch. I definitely voted. Don't worry about it. So there you go.
What I said to Mark was, when has that ever happened? What?
Yeah, man. The thing that I think is important.
There's a glitch in the democracy. There's a
Oh,
glitch in the. It's like, wait, hold on. So when we vote on legislation, there's glitches. Like this kind of presents a whole new sort of. Hold on, what? What do you mean there was a glitch? How often do glitches happen, Mr. PP?
Mr.
Like
Polyev. Yeah. Hey, that's a great question. Follow up. How many?
Yeah. But does it not present a crap ton of questions?
Are you saying?
Wait, sorry. So there's glitches.
Hold on. Let's just break this down.
There's a glitch in the democracy.
In light of Mr. Polyev saying that, yes, I indeed did vote. Don't worry about it. I'll let the people know. Apparently the vote didn't register. There you go. Are you saying that this could impact the outcome of the votes somehow in our democracy? You think that?
Yeah. Or how about, this just in, breaking, massive glitch, 100 liberal votes actually meant to oppose the ban. So actually we need to reverse that decision because of the glitch.
Can you imagine if there's 100 liberal backbenchers who are like, we're going to do it this time. And then they find out the whip is like, actually, it's much easier if I just flip your votes and then say, listen, gentlemen, there's a board in the back and I can just sit there and I can see what you do. And if you vote wrong, I will electrocute you through your chair. There's a button for that too.
It's really terrifying. Like, think about how efficient a lot of the apps we use on our phone, a lot of the technology, a lot of the Netflix, all the algorithms, like fine-tuned and everything. It's really terrifying to think how fine-tuned, the back end of democracy could be. Like imagine if you just looked at it through the most cynical lens ever. And because we were talking about this as well, like the legitimacy of our elections now with Dominion voting systems and stuff. And when they were talking about Dominion, wasn't there there's like a drag and drop feature where you kind of just move votes around and click and drag. Pardon?
Yeah. So, did you see the article that says there's a bunch of known glitches in Dominion machines? And I don't know if they're the same Dominion machines that are being used in the Ontario election, but I think it was, I can't remember which article, which newspaper posted this, but the article headline was like, known glitches, no evidence of being exploited. So in the article, it's like, yeah, of course there's glitches. It's a computer thing. No problem. There's always glitches. No evidence that these glitches were exploited. Don't worry about it. Right? We got this. Everybody's aware of the glitches. Everything's cool. So it's like, and it's so funny because your automatic reaction of wait a second, there's glitches. This could happen. And nobody's worried about the other votes. I didn't even go there. I didn't even cross my mind to question that as a vector of potential.
And I feel like we're being groomed to accept incompetence and accept even corruption at this point, especially in Canada. Think about not even the last 2 years, but especially with the SNC Lavalin and the We Charity, we've been groomed aggressively, and maybe this has been happening even before that.
Oh yeah.
The public is being groomed aggressively to be when things go wrong, when corruption happens, we just, someone resigns or we shuffle around cabinet members.
That doesn't happen anymore. That does not happen. Sometimes you get
they don't even bother anymore.
Yeah, right.
They don't even bother.
Rarely does something actually get resigned. I see Scott Bryson left government and then immediately went to BMO on Valentine's Day. He got a job at BMO. On the 30th of January, he was out of government. I think 28th. Out of government. to spend more time with his family. Then on the 14th, BMO. I was like, wow, man, you got to spend more time with your family. 2 weeks later, I'm out, family. See you later. I've got a BMO to say. And what's his face? Morneau as well, right? Like he was out.
It's I was just gonna say, like, it's a weird double think that's going on. It's this weird sort of, you know, when things go wrong, when the Ontario science table, for example, gets projection after projection after projection,
Every projection,
like incorrect, grossly incorrect.
How do we hold people like that accountable?
No, but I'm talking about the two different narratives that happen.
No, right.
One narrative is trust the experts, trust the experts. How can you not trust the experts? And the other one is, oh, well, when the experts mess up, it's, they did their best, and we shouldn't question that at all.
It's what one
do you
of
mean? Whoa,
we spent 2 years.
Hey, we're not going to hold them accountable. Right.
We spent 2 years as a society giving them the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, if you go tobogganing with your parents and they say, you are going to break your leg if you don't do this, 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 and this, and then you don't like have come anywhere close to breaking your leg, and you get better at the toboggan and stuff, you're going to give your parents warnings, less credence, right? Like, sure, like if they overdo it, right? If every time you go tobogganing, it's like you're gonna die horribly unless you do this, you're going to be like, wow, man, this could be really dangerous. But then you see that it's not so dangerous, or it really depends on circumstances that are changing for every individual hill, let's say, right? You start to ignore your parents' warnings and you start to say, I'm going to do my own risk assessment, which is kind of the cornerstone of our whole like thing that we had going here, right? Not anymore. I don't think that that's really going here anymore so much still, because to wind very quickly back to what we were talking about at the top, the travel restrictions were not repealed. The motion by the Conservatives did not pass. And so the Liberals and the NDP and the Bloc and the Greens all voted in a one block to defeat the Conservative motion and keep the travel restrictions in place. And the travel minister was asked today, how long are these restrictions going to last? And he said, oh, we're not sure yet. So sciencey science, very sciencey science. So, I mean, that's where we're at. And is there anything going to change that? It doesn't look like we can unseat a government like Jagmeet.
Well, we could vote for PP in 3 years. We could vote for Pierre in 3 years, and then that'll solve the problem. I can't wait to send all my money to Pierre, and he'll save us in 3 years. Mark, what do you mean? I'm pretty cynical. To answer your question, I don't know what the hell we're going to do, man.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
You're right, man.
What
you're right.
The heck?
So like probably a year ago, I was saying, like, really, if you can convince your family to get out of Canada, if you've got an opportunity in another country or something like that, like do it. And now I'm starting to see other Twitter accounts really advocating for that. Like, honestly saying, like, if you can get out of Canada and Australia, like, get out of Canada and Australia if you can do it. So, and like, I don't know if there's anything more nefarious than what we've already endured coming. I can't imagine not, right? Like you remember I can't, do you remember
you can't imagine it getting worse?
No, I can't imagine that they'll show restraint now. Like they've kind of shown their hand.
Right.
Like, I can't imagine that they'll be like, oh man, that's crossing a line. Like,
yeah.
Churches?
You can't imagine them easing up.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's like, what line exactly is going to trigger people to say this is enough? Like, we've had enough, right? Like Notre Dame was lit on fire, and it looked pretty, I don't know, it looked pretty something to me. I'm skeptical that it was an accident, right? So travel restrictions, the government's not interested in changing it. There's not really any way that the citizenry can force this. If you get a bunch of friends with a truck, I don't know, don't take it to Ottawa, right? The government's traumatized enough as it is.
The honking, it's not.
Oh,
the honking is horrifying. Okay.
In France, the farmers roll out manure trucks, and I've seen there's videos from different years of manure, like spreading, like for spreading it on fields and stuff, manure machines, and they bring the manure machines and they paint the outside of the building with manure. I watched the guys go back and forth on the building, like very right cool. At the exit, and I was like, wow, like that's like a very pointed communication. Like, dear politicians,
yeah, This is
right?
what we think of you.
But now, yeah, but now, and like this was, I saw a video of this in like 2015, 2016. I was like, wow, man, they're mad. Like they're very angry. Apparently, this is a French thing to do. Apparently, this is something that
Yep.
happens
Yep.
in France. And I thought, man, like, but I think now, like, they'd be like, oh, this is, agricultural white supremacy terrorism. And I'm just like, they'd spin it. And it's so maddening.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, a lot of the state of the world kind of hangs in the balance of these smartphones, right? In the way that people consume information now.
Mhm.
And
Very curated.
Very targeted. Like
Mhm.
they said, like I don't know if we were live or not, but you talked about how the algorithms, know us better than we know
Better than we know ourselves.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's quite scary to think the capacity to produce propaganda, to distribute propaganda, target
Pushing the right
propaganda,
buttons.
and also measure it. You can kind
Yep.
of measure
You
now
can
how
measure it.
effective the
Well,
propaganda is.
so what I was saying in the green room is that if the algorithm, Facebook or the algorithm generally knows the user better than the user knows themselves, then the algorithm can manipulate the user. And also, as Greg was saying, you can measure that in the real world. I was saying the other day, I was speculating that things like the ice bucket challenge and planking, we're seeing how well memes on the internet could be brought into the real world. And I'm interested to see how the measurement of like this kind of shaping is going to be brought into the real world. You know what I'm saying? Like it's measurement of this is important. And I think that they're sophisticated enough where they can be pretty reasonably assured that a lot of people are going to go along with this. And like, I mean, I think that's wild. I think it's wild that that's even part of like consideration, most people don't consider it though.
All right, should we talk about guns or speech next?
Oh, let's do guns and we'll end on speech.
Okay.
So guns, yesterday, the Trudeau government announced that C-21 was going to address or going to introduce a freeze on handgun purchases when passed. So you can still purchase handguns in Canada until this is passed. And there was a increase in prison sentences for smuggling guns over international borders and things. So they are trying, like I watched Trudeau's, and I played it on my show this morning. But he was talking about how there's increased prison sentences for that kind of stuff. But I still, none of our laws are functioning in a way that I think most people expect them to be functioning. And so when Trudeau says stuff like that, there's a lot of discretion involved. And I think that most people are unaware of just how lax our system is. And I mean, how long it takes for people to get court dates. So
he's claiming that they're going to make it more severe penalties for people.
You can't for smuggling guns. Yes. But they're saying that one of the crown jewel of this whole thing is the handgun freeze. They're trying to ban handguns. So within one generation, basically, like you can't transfer ownership. Basically, if you own a handgun now, you're going to die with it. That's your handgun until you give it into the government to melt down, because handguns are evil and obviously the root of all of the problems that are inherent in the world. I mean, it's not like we're following a historical blueprint that is easily like pointed out in history. And like what happens after is very good usually, right? When you look at those examples, but.
And it just seems silly too, because, this liberal government has never, I don't think ever, and maybe technically only now because they're really kind of going for it with gun bans, like actually distinguish the difference. They've never distinguished the difference, not often anyway, between illegal guns and like lawfully legal gun owners. When they did the whole thing after the Nova Scotia shooting, it was all about, we need to ban assault style firearms. We need to ban assault style firearms, deaths, all these deaths. And it's like, well, that guy acquired his guns illegally. If you look at the stats of who dies from gun violence, it's like over 98% most years illegal firearms. So how can you talk about we're going to keep the streets safe when literally the people who die in the streets most often in Toronto, for example, are from illegal guns.
Yep.
Like,
Well, and that's the point I keep making on my show as well. And like they keep referencing foreign like shootings to say here we have to prevent that coming from here. But I mean, like the
right.
guns per capita in the United States is such a different story than Canada. It's like it's not even worth the real conversation.
Well, and it's weird that this is a weird feature of Canadian politics, right? Where, you know, a lot of our national identity for these kind of normie leftist centrist types are, well, we're going to be good boys, not like the States. You know, we're going to just like, it's this weird sort of insecure reaction to everything that's happening in the United States. It's this odd sort of, oh, well, you know, my older brother's a mess up, but like, you know, I'm going to be the good one. And it's like,
yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of shade Canada likes to throw at the United States, and I think it's really funny, like considering like we don't pay our full defense bill. You know, like Trump pointed out, like, hey, like NATO demands 2%, and you guys are paying like 1.2.
And I don't know, like it really is a mentality that can only exist in like a city center or a suburb where people have these very comfortable, cushy lives,
There's
and
nothing
they're kind of spoon fed like these ideas of like
they are,
guns bad,
but
guns
it's
are
cultivated.
so bad.
Like so,
but like this is important for Canada because
yeah,
there are a lot, like when it comes to the stats of legal gun owners, like we have some of the strictest restrictions. We have some of like the best records in terms of really polite, well-to-do
yeah.
Canadians who are following all the rules, and like they're either a sports shooter, they're a
Yeah.
hunter, or they're a farmer. And there's like there's especially a utility for a farmer to have a firearm. But anyway,
You know what would be an interesting series?
what's that?
We should go to high schools and ask high school kids, what do you think of personal firearms? And just like let them answer. And then say, what do you think about abortions? And let them answer. I think that would be very telling about what our society is, thinks about.
And how about this? Do you think people have the right to self-defense? Self-defense is not something that people, because like that's the whole thing in the States, right? Self-defense, having, I gotta have my firearm on me. And that is, we need to have the 2A conversation here. Like, let's get to the point, guys. Let's get to the 2A thing. And you might say, well, Greg, that's not the Canadian way. There should still be people up here talking about it to be the counterpoint. But I think even what's going on right now.
I think even in the United States, if you've got a militia who is saying we are going to take on the United States, do you remember Waco? And like, you know what I'm talking about? They got crushed. Do you remember there was a bunch of guys on, I think it was a Texas farm, but it could have been a different farm. But there was like, they had like 100 acres and they had a militia with a bunch of guys, and the US came in. They were like, ha ha ha, guys, no. Like, and we mean no, we mean like no. So like, I think if you got, and I'm not saying a civil war can't spark off in the United States. That's not what I'm saying. I think that like the history shows that certainly it's possible that you could get an organized situation where there's a leader who takes like half of the United States, and there's a conflict like that could happen. I don't know that it could happen in today's climate on the internet. I think they would disrupt it. Right. I think they would be using technology to detect people who are that charismatic, et cetera. And I think they would disrupt it. I think that's this CCP strategy. Like, I think that they would be actively.
How confident are you in this story of the militia existing?
Oh, because it was reported on like Rachel Maddow. This is going back to like 2009, but Waco was Bill Clinton. He authorized action on these. Like that was a people, they were saying like, leave us alone. We're sovereign and blah, blah, blah. We're doing what, you know, it's within, I can't remember exactly this. I was young with Waco, but I was like, oh, that seems bad. And then like there were a whole bunch of people who were super angry that Clinton authorized them to enter and stuff. And so I can't remember the exact Waco circumstances, but fundamentally what I'm saying is like they will crush something like that, and like they will use the full power of the state to make sure that people understand there is no civil war. Like we're supreme, and like
but dude, I was just talking about people talking about self-defense and talking about the Second Amendment in Canada. I wasn't talking about people setting up militia camps.
No, I
Like,
know, but
like
there's
you
well,
took it in that direction.
there's a short distance between like having a weapon for self-defense for like you self defending a rural property because it takes the police 18 minutes to get from anywhere in town to your property, right? So you need a rifle for like rabid animals or something, or if there's
Sure.
intruders who are threatening you bodily, you need to be able to deter them. So that's the argument. But like there are a lot of people who, like, if you read the Second Amendment, take it all the way to like standing militia, and then they start trying to discredit your argument based on that. And I was just trying to give color to that. That's all.
Okay. I haven't heard that
That
part of the.
criticism.
No, no, I haven't.
Maybe I'm crossing some wires. Could be.
Well, but I really think that like the most Canadians would not get nearly that far. They wouldn't jump to the militia thing. They would jump to the, why would you need a gun for self? They would just kind of reject the idea of lawfully owning a gun in general for self-defense because I don't know, because we're so nice and we're not like the States. We're not like the States, I tell you.
Yep, they do. It's well, so we are like the States, though. In a lot of ways, we follow them in a lot of
of course.
and
No, this is the thing. All of the good things about Canada, a lot of the good things about Canadian society is from the States, like the freedom thing, the freedom of speech thing, the freedom to have opportunity to
it all came from the Magna
make your own
Carta,
decisions.
right? Like that's from like
Sure.
12, and that originates in the UK, right? So it's kind of like, but yeah, like Western society, right? There's an argument made. It's split in the US and Canada because we got
but on the
Canadian
contrary,
Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right?
all the things that are annoying about Canada might be more from the UK, which is like this allegiance to the Queen. We have to be polite or something, or like pretend we're polite or something like this. We try to be proper. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but
well, there's all sorts of people who, they have legitimate grievances because the way things are written, like the contract of Canada and the creation of the country, and like the colony status, and like we weren't a real country for a long time, and like a lot of people make the argument that we're still not a real country, and like there's a whole bunch of legal kind of gray, I guess. But the game that most people play is Canada's a country. You know what I mean? Like the game that all the governments play is Canada's a country. This is the structure that it operates within, and it is a G7 nation, and blah, blah, blah. So like, as far as everything is concerned legally, I think now, a lot of the time, most people operate there. And like, there are the sovereign citizen people who, and like the other legal structures who step out of that. But yeah, I mean, like there's so much. Well, it's so complicated. I'm not making the point I want to make, so I'll just stop.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, to jump back to the Waco thing, Jeremy McKenzie, Raging Dissident.
I saw he got arrested.
Yeah, you interviewed him recently about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Was he arrested after that? I heard he was arrested like yesterday.
Really?
That old news. Yeah. Maybe you should reach out. I thought he was. Maybe I'll reach out. I'll send him a message saying, "Are you arrested?"
He streamed last night.
Did
but
he
I was
stream
gonna.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but
well,
he did
I'm glad.
Yeah.
He's not.
But he did. Oh yeah, he did like a little mini documentary of his own research on Waco.
Okay.
And yeah, you can go to ragingdissident.com, and I think it's on like, you can find it somewhere. But
very helpful.
Yeah. No, ragingdissident.com is where you would start your search.
And then search Waco. Probably.
Something like that.
But
so we'll talk about free speech now.
Sure, we can talk about free speech. We'll finish off on free speech. C-18 is the bill that is bringing in the like you have to pay for the links. Google is supposed to pay for links linking to news sources. And so is Facebook and other web giants. You're supposed to pay for links going to news sources. I don't know if Twitter counts as a news source. Can you link to their Twitter link? Is that free still? So they want to bring in this link tax, and they want to bring in basically censorship of the internet. C11 is supposed to be censoring the broadcaster, or the streamer. So like Twitch, YouTube, Restream, whatever infrastructure you use to get on the internet, they'll regulate them. And so when questions are asked, is this regulating user generated content? And they dodge the question. That's because the answer is yes. It is absolutely yes. 100% yes. That is exactly what they're doing. That's 100% the point. And they don't want to talk about it because they're trying desperately not to talk about it. So even to the point where they just say, oh, that's disinformation, so as not to engage with like the idea at all. It's really, I mean, it's quite something.
Yeah, commie's gonna commie, man. Commie's gonna commie. It's all in the name of democracy, of course. We are going to usurp all control of information on the internet and ban anyone we want, because we're afraid of misinformation. No, this is really
Well,
one of the most
yeah.
important issues, I think. And it used to be kind of more cut and dry, where there was only like a couple of bills, but now there's like multiple bills that kind of
Yes.
work together
C36 as
to
well.
yeah, C11, C18, and C36.
Yeah.
And yeah, and once again, oh, PP will save us in 3 years. It's like, no, like this legislation needs to be stopped, or else it's we have to go back to like printing out flyers and stuff, you guys,
I
and
think
like
we have
giving each other
to,
like USB
but
sticks and stuff.
we have to have compassion for people who are hopeful with Mr. Polyev, because like he's saying all the right things. Now, when he loses, we have to have compassion for them because they still don't get that it's a rigged system. Obviously, right? So like, do you think he's going to win? Do you think Mr. Polyev is going to win? First ballot, he's just going to take it down? You don't
Like
think John Charest?
the CPC leadership?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll win.
You think he'll win?
Yep. He's but for sure the globalist choice, number one. He's the
Why?
perfect.
You think he's the globalist choice?
Yeah,
I haven't seen
absolutely.
evidence of that. I haven't seen evidence of that. But I mean, we can disagree. But
How often has the news media called him racist? A lot.
I haven't seen. I have seen him accused of being Trump like, but and I have seen a couple of articles calling him racist, but they did not go full bore on that, because I did show that what they did to Bernier is they covered him honestly for the first like week, 2 weeks, and then he made some fatal error, and so then they stopped covering him honestly and started the smear attacks. So they covered Mr. Polyev honestly. I think they're going to let the Ontario election blow through, because Poilievre's still doing like touring around the country, but I think they're going to let the Ontario election blow through before doubling down on the attacks, because they're going to like population density matters in these kind of races, etc. Because like a small riding in Ontario could have more say than like ridings in other places, right? So they stack it there. And I heard that Patrick Brown is really stealthy about selling memberships, and Charest is. I think Charest is the obvious globalist plant and or liberal plant, right? No, you don't think so? I think it would destroy the CCP, but I don't think they care.
Jean Charest.
Yeah,
I think Jean Charest is there to make PPC look, or PP look good.
maybe.
And essentially, it effectively keeps people in the establishment. It keeps people in the libcon world. So it's perfect, because the conservatives want an answer. They like the trucker convoy happened, all this stuff's happening, the inflation's skyrocketing. We need the best leader. Oh, this guy's like a liberal. This guy, oh, I don't like Jean Charest. Oh, PPC. Oh my God, PPC. I'm salivating. Yeah.
PP,
So like,
PP.
oh, sorry. PP. Small PP.
Yeah.
My mistake.
I understand people who still believe in the system being enthusiastic about Mr. Polyev. I do. I really do.
And okay, and also, yeah, it's not to say that there isn't conservative MPs who are doing a good job, and not even to say that PP is doing a good job, but it's basically saying, I will vote for a slow death.
Yes,
as opposed to actually trying to stop the bleeding, for example.
Well, at this point, we've got like, we're like the Black Knight in Monty Python. Like they've taken both our legs and our arm, and we're like, oh, 'tis but a flesh wound. Get back here. I'll bite your ankles off. Like it is not a situation where we're doing so well, but It doesn't seem to matter. People, not that people don't care, but they are not willing to throw everything out. They think if Mr. Polyev represents a return to quote normal, that's what they want, and they feel represented by him. And like, I can understand that. You know what I mean? And like, but I feel like the smear campaign hasn't started yet, because it would get lost in the Ontario election shuffle. Wait till after the Ontario election, then we'll start seeing the news start attacking Mr. Polyev more pointedly, I think. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I think there's going to be elements of that. I think that there's going to be elements of trying to make PP look bad. And I think the conservative base will eat that up. But I think PP will end up winning and potentially become the next prime minister, but he's not going to be an actual conservative. He's going to be a neocon. He's going to be somebody who, and by that point, all this legislation may have been passed already. So like the poor state of the country will make it such a desperation that we need to get the other guy in. We need to get the libs out. And then guess what? If he gets voted in and changes nothing, then it's already game over. Like, you know what I mean? Like if they even pass the legislation before he gets in, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be very easy to like, yeah, we need to vote in PP, and then like the small PP gets in there, and then what does small PP do? Is he actually going to repeal this is C36, C11, all this stuff?
Well, he says he will.
Yeah. So and then what did Trudeau say? He said he was going to do electoral reform. He said he was going to do, all these broken. It's the same pattern over and over again. Yeah, I see small PP as a very beautiful baton pass. Like a relay, a 100-meter relay.
See, yeah, but I
like men's 4x100-meter relay. You have the baton. Ready, set, go, and you're running with the baton, and you have to practice with the next teammate of how you're going to pass the baton without slowing down at all.
Yeah,
and like this transition from Trudeau to PP is like a very like well-designed baton pass, where it's like it's going to be seamless. It's going to look perfect, and it's going to be the same WEF characters doing their thing, and it's all going to look none the wiser.
Baird as WEF. I don't disagree there, but I think that's the only indication I've seen. It's exhausting. And like, I mean, I think we can agree to disagree on that. And like, we'll have to wait and see. There's like, I can't,
see, why I don't like this mentality.
What?
It's the same thing as the QAnon mentality.
It's not,
I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait. And hopefully these guys will save us.
What are you going to do about it?
I'm just going to wait, and hopefully these guys will save us.
It's not about saving anybody. It's like you have to play within.
But it's don't do anything yourself.
No, but you have to play within the limitations that, like the real world is. You have to contend with the real world. Like you can't.
Sure.
You can't show up in Ottawa. I can't show up in Ottawa and say, I know that you are wrong in this political blah. And so because I know that you're wrong, I'm going to take this action and be right. Like, you know what I mean? Who knows if I'm right? So these things take time. Who knows what was the trucker convoy other than a large amount of people doing that? Right. Exactly. Look what happened. And when I say you can't do that, I'm saying the situation we're currently in. Okay. So like in 1940 Germany, the situation they were in was such that you had to watch what you say to who you said it to. And like who you said it to, you have to watch what your family said. You have to be careful because of political implication of the things that you were talking about, right? Like, can we agree on that? I mean, I wasn't around back then. Well, but like that's what our history tells us, I guess, right? So right. That's the story told to us by history. So like now, when I say you have to contend with the reality of that situation, if we agree that the trucker convoy, so a whole bunch of people going to Ottawa to say, we are right and you are wrong. Look at how many of us there are. Look at how many of you, so on. I agree with the truckers. I think that they were right. I don't think the government had any right to do what they did to the truckers. I think that in a fair game, that brings the government down because the political pressure of the truckers saying we're right and you're wrong, it would have been enough to topple that government. But in the reality that we have to contend with, the government activated the power of the state to crush the trucker protest. And we have to understand what that means. And what that means is it doesn't matter if we think we're right and we think they're wrong. We have to endure this until enough people stand up and say, no, what you're doing is wrong. And we all agree. And we haven't reached that tipping point yet. Even with the trucker convoy, we haven't reached that tipping point. And if we do reach that tipping point, we should probably have a realistic expectation that the government is going to do everything it can, including using the powers of the state, to maintain power. So how do you contend with that? And I think that that's something that, like, you can't escape, right? Like, does that make sense? So like the so what is like, what can I do as a person if I know that things aren't right? But if I don't play the game, I lose my job. If I don't play the game, my family doesn't eat. If I don't play the game, like these negative consequences, right? Like, do you understand? Like, I understand the mentality of like, you have to walk the walk, and you have to be the freedom fighter, or be the change you want to see, to badly quote Gandhi, right? But in reality, like, people have competing interests. If you go off half cocked and the people around you, your family, your parents, your kids, your wife, your partner, whatever it is, start saying like, wow, man, like, we got bills to make, we got to do this, you got to do this. And you ignore it and say the most important thing is freedom, or this or that. People aren't going to think you're well. You know what I mean? So like, you have to contend with the real world in that way, in a certain way. Right. And so like, how can people with those constraints, and they are real valid constraints, how can people do something about all of this? I think people feel powerless. And the crushing of the trucker convoy, despite the fact that it was the most successful protest in history, was demoralizing to anybody who's trying to fight back, because those guys looked like they had a shot. It looked legitimate, peaceful, above board, right? Until those police got there and started, throwing elbows and knees.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that. I think the part of the trucker convoy being the most demoralizing thing. Like,
no, I'm just not most demoralizing. I was just saying crushing it is demoralizing to people who are looking to say, like, what can I do? Like, if the truckers can't win, right? And they didn't have a total victory. They got lots of movement, and it was one of the most successful protests I've ever seen. But they didn't win by their own measure, which is, or they didn't have a total victory, which is, I mean, how could you ever plan for that?
I would argue the biggest demoralizing thing to come from the trucker convoy, in the aftermath of the trucker convoy, is the fact that an establishment politician like Pierre Poilievre is getting all the support of trucker convoy supporters, or a lot of like, I think that is the demoralizing thing to me, because it's like, wow, so the people who never stood up against these mandates for 2 years, and now you're going to start supporting these people.
Yeah,
like,
but
to me, that is the demoralizing thing. That is the disappointing thing.
But
you do bring up a good point. We have to contend with that fact. We have to accept the fact that there are a lot of people who are just kind of like going with the flow, sitting on the couch and hoping PP will save us. And you're right.
I don't think that that's what people are doing. But I mean, I think that people would do something if they thought that their actions would have impact. But it feels like that's not possible, not plausible, right? So, and I mean, like, I do try to do things. I write letters. I send real mail to people. I schedule meetings with people who are in charge. I do things. And let me tell you, man, like, they will do everything to ignore you. They will do everything to ignore you and make sure that you feel ineffective, like you're punching air, like, so even though they violate things like the Education Act, and like blatantly and openly, having anybody held accountable for any of these transgressions, it's like fighting a hydra. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't fight. I'm just saying that there's a reality to what's going on that is bigger than me or you, and bigger than like anybody's, like, not you, your, like, anybody's want to do something about it. Even if you wanted to tackle this monster by yourself, like, it's just not like, if you started walking up Mount Everest, if you're like, I'm leaving base camp right now and I'm going to climb Mount Everest tonight, like, I'm finishing this off right now, everybody would be like, dude, you're crazy. You can't do that. That is not how this works. You have to you have to contend with the
Yeah,
mountain.
but dude, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we
No, no, I
shouldn't be
know.
putting all of our faith in Pierre.
No,
Like
no, I know that,
that's
but
all.
I feel
That's
like,
all I'm saying.
there's um, a lot of people who feel uh, a lot of motivation to do something, but
Hmm.
very powerless as to where to put that motivation. They don't feel
I
like
agree with that for
they don't
sure.
feel like they can donate to something because, maybe you get your bank account frozen. And if you do donate
Hmm.
to somebody, maybe somebody says you donated blah, so you're a bad person and you're racist, and they don't know who to support, because some people peddle falsehoods, some people make it more about them than it is about the actual story or the country or whatever it is. Some people are on the payroll. Kinsella, I mean, whatever. Sorry, at you. But
Bless you.
thank you. Yeah, no, it's a terrible, sneeze that happens when.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But there's all sorts of.
That must have been a disgusting parasite that
Yeah, no, for sure.
crossed
Thank God.
your nasal or something.
Thank goodness it's gone now. But
Gross.
you see what I'm saying, right? There's so much confusion and there's so much conflicting pushing and pulling that it's really hard to come up with like, okay, this is the right voice to listen to. This is the right thing to do. It's really difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah. Hey, on the contrary, for people who follow me, I haven't been putting a lot of content out there kind of for this reason, because it's like, what is the answer? What is the sort of solution or direction that people can get behind? And yeah, right now I'm just kind of venting, because it's like, I really don't think hoping PP will save us in 3 years is a good strategy at all. And
It'll fly.
pardon?
I said it'll fly by. You would do a blink of an eye, be like, oh man,
I don't think so, man. I think it's gonna be slow and painful.
$4 gas. What?
Did the last 2 years fly by? What? Or has it felt like 10? Has it felt like 10? Has it felt like 20? It's felt like 20 years.
I have to get going. But in 2020, when St. Patrick's Day hit, I was like, man, because like I had friends who were like, oh man, we're excited about St. Patrick's Day, and I was like, man, China virus, not happening. I'm not doing it. And then they shut everything down, and I was like, ooh, the bartenders aren't going to like that. Like the people who own the bars aren't going to like that. And I can't, so it never got started. Like the year never really popped off. It was done right at the beginning of springtime. Everybody was like ready to have like, that welcome spring party. And
are you an alcoholic?
Suddenly 2 years later,
2020 never really started because we didn't have St. Patty's Day.
No,
I've never thought of it that way before, Mark.
In Guelph, like St. Patrick's Day
is
big party. Like
gotcha,
because of the university. And if you drive
around,
say no
more. That makes sense.
It's one of those things. And May 5th, like Cinco de Mayo is just kind of crazy in Guelph. And it's like, dude, it literally means 5th of May. Like, and I understand like there's historical context, but like I always find it funny that Guelph is like, you know what? It's Cinco de Mayo. So it's pretty funny. And so yeah, I just never felt like 2020 kicked off because like the town didn't get that feeling, and
that's another thing that comes back to the apathy, it's St. Patty's Day, bro, we're just gonna vote for PP in 3 years, things will be fine, dude, just have a drink, dude, it's Cinco de Mayo.
Hey man, the alcohol has been pushed by like Ellen and like The View. They're always like, it's wine time. Like it's time to relax and have a wine.
And
they're always telling women to have a drink. I'm like, this is not good for you. Don't drink. Yeah, it's not so good.
And in Canada, I think that's kind of a Trailer Park Boys has a very kind of like degenerate theme to it, of always drinking and always smoking, whatever. Yep. And I think that is something that exists in Canada. Unfortunately, as funny as it is, it's kind of like charming. It's kind of to our detriment when it comes to politics and us giving a crap like where the boat's headed,
Where the de facto Canadian guy's wearing like a bucket hat and he's got like 2 tall boys and he's like, hey everyone, he's wearing like plaid. Yeah, I could see how that would be like, we're not seen as quite the serious hat above America, right? Like America, the tenant, right? Like above America there, the apartment above there.
We're quite the interesting character because like we really think we're hot. Like we really think we're like, quite better than America.
Well, we have
not
basements.
American. And it's like, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
it is interesting. That permeated like, Guelph a little bit, that thought process, but anyway, regardless, like the better than, like not being better than Americans, but like, we're Canadians and that's,
it's like sticking your nose up. Yeah,
it is. It is, yeah. But there was a time where Americans were not seen as like Canadians were seen on the world stage. If you had a Canadian flag on your travel luggage, people would be like, "Oh, let them be, they're Canadian." And now it's kind of like, those poor Canadians.
Trudeau.
Yeah, it's okay. Like those poor Canadians are subject to that terrible dictator. So
Yeah,
it's more pity now than, like, oh, that guy's probably, those people are pretty good. Now it's like, oh, those poor people.
But hey, man, that's kind of a positive result of the trucker convoy in a sense.
Which
The fact that people are like think of Trudeau as a dictator.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a lot of there's been a whole lot of articles written in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and like post trucker convoy, especially with the banks and stuff. And I've noticed it again with the banks apologizing today. We didn't get to that, but that's all right. Apologizing, and Andy Lee can get her bank account unfrozen, I guess. All of that happened as well. So there's more articles talking about Trudeau and his overreach and all of that. So it is interesting. I think it is just going to take time for that to permeate, because like when people were done with Harper, the news picked up on it and it became a self-feeding like thing. And the news loved it because they wanted to replace it. And the chosen candidate that year was Justin Trudeau. So we disagree on Poilievre, but I'm sure we'll explore it more as this long campaign winds through. But I think we're going to see more attacks after the Ontario election.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. There's glitches in the voting system in the House of Commons.
It's totally cool.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's cool. Don't even worry about it. I mean, there's not even a newspaper article about it.
Just relax. It was a glitch. Okay, nothing to worry about.
Everybody knows there's glitches. Glitches. What glitches? Okay, that's enough from us. Thanks for watching, everybody. Greg, where can they find you?
Find me on my channel, Greg Wycliffe, Instagram, Greg Wycliffe, Twitter, TikTok at GDUB. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Always, buddy. It's always nice to have you. And my stuff you can find at CanadaPoly.com, and check out Dig It and all the other stuff that I do. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.